Hey, welcome to episode 64. That's right, went on 64. Yeah, sorry about that horrible accent. Of Scar Bearers, I'm Chris DT Gordon. It is wonderful to have you here with me today. And as always, Nate and Britton Barron bringing the technological magic to my production. If you want them to do their wizardry on your work, you can reach them at Nate Barron. Well, folks, as we are entering the summer months, I am always looking for speaking gigs for the following school year, or even in the summer, I can work then too. So if you want to reach out to linktr.ee/Chris DT Gordon to reach out to me, or you can email me at chrisdtgordon@gmail.com so we can connect and I can use my message of the attitude of gratitude to help your students live positive, happy lives using TAG. Well, folks, speaking of positive, grateful people, I am joined by a new hero of mine, Frank King. Frank and Snugs as well. I must give credit to Snugs the cat. How are you today, Frank?
I'm good. Here's Snuggles.
Hey, Snugs.
A little shy.
And so, Frank, we're going to talk about what brings you to Scar Bearers eventually, but I'm going to break my my mold a little bit. Usually, I have my guests tell their stories chronologically, but as I told you before, I am a fan of yours because you have written on the Tonight Show for 20 years, and I grew up on that show. So you're going to have to tell me how you ended up in the writer's room and any interesting stories you have from your time there.
Well, and I went to school at Chapel Hill. I told my first joke in fourth grade and the students laughed. The teacher was hysterical. And I thought I'm going to be a comedian. Then 12th grade, I did a talent show and I won. And I famously said to my mother, I'm going to be a comedian. And she said, son, you're going to college first. I don't care what you do when you get done. You can be a goat herder for all I care, but you're going to be a goat herder with a college degree. So I agreed to go to college, went to UNC Chapel Hill, got a couple of degrees, and then went out to California, San Diego. Just happened to have, the reason I mentioned Carolina was that I always wondered, because I used to sit in our dorm room suite with my suite mates and watch the Tonight Show and watch Letterman back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I always wondered, I wonder if any other guys here are thinking, I'm going to be on that show someday. I suspect none of my suite mates had any ambition to be on television, but I did. Even at that point, I wanted to be on the show. And then when Leno became the permanent guest host, Shandling did the Larry Sanders Show on HBO, so he couldn't do it. Joan Rivers upset Johnny, so she got blown out. So Jay was what was left. And Jay's manager famously said to him, they're offering after scale pay, meaning I think at the time it was like $865 a day. Wow. And Helen Kushnick said, I think we can do better. And Jay said, I would do it for $1 a night. Because of the spinoff business, because of what it would do for your career. I mean, the money, the daily, nightly money wouldn't be, that's not where Leno knew that's not where the value was. Mm. He knew it was in, the exposure and whatever. And so when he did that, oftentimes Johnny would come on a Friday and say, I'm taking next week off. That meant Jay had 4 monologues, 18 jokes a monologue to crank out by himself. And so he started hiring road comics. This is like the heyday of comedy clubs, 85 to 95. But I left San Diego day after Christmas, 1985. I was on the road till 94, I guess. My wife and I, girlfriend at the time, now my wife of 33 years, we were on the road for 2,629 nights, nonstop. And so I traveled with, we were called fax writers at the time, all these comics on the road writing for Jay. So I had a fax machine in the car that I traveled with and would set up shop wherever I went. And when Leno would put out the call, I've got 4 shows next week, I would send in 2 dozen jokes a day. And then I would record them at night on an old VCR that we carried with us. And then get up in the morning. It's kind of like the lottery. You want to see if he used your joke. and we're all operating from the same source material, newspaper.
Mhm.
So could sound like your joke when he started, but the punchline might be different, or you weren't sure whether he used your version. So what I would do is, if the joke had like a percentage in it, 25% of Americans, I would change it to 27% of Americans, so that he said 27%, I knew it was my joke. What he would do is, he would take the jokes, his staff would take the jokes, they'd write them on index cards. He'd go to the Hermosa Beach Comedy Magic Club and would go through the jokes one at a time on index cards, and anything that hit, he put in his pocket. And everything else ended up on the floor. And that's how he wrote the monologues when he was guest host. And then came down to Jay and David Letterman. And Leno, strategically, because he played venues all over the country, when he came to a town, he would go by the NBC affiliate and chat everybody up and say, look, you want me to cut some promos for you or whatever, I'll be happy to do it. And so when all the affiliates got together at a convention, and they used to often decide things not based on a straw poll, but they would take the straw poll into consideration. And Leno won the straw poll because he met pretty much everybody who ran an affiliate NBC station in the world.
Yeah.
And so, and I've heard that he's the kind of guy you bring home for Thanksgiving dinner. Letterman's a little prickly. I'm not sure I'd bring him home for Thanksgiving dinner. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's how Leno got the show. And they let most of the contract players go when he got the show, but they kept me on and a couple other guys. And so I wrote with him until he left for CNBC in the car show.
Oh, wow. So at what point did you decide, I probably don't need the faxing machine in my car anymore?
Yeah. In 94, I went to work at a radio station in Raleigh, North Carolina. During the mid 90s, they were hiring comics to do morning shows. Mm-hmm. And so I got a job at the #1 rock and roll morning show in Raleigh, which I drove in 18 months to number 6, one of my proudest accomplishments. And I got fired, and then went on the road, jumped to the corporate comedy, the rubber chicken circuit after dinner, after lunch at convention, and rode that till 07, 08. And then the business dropped off 80% with the recession. And by 2010, we lost everything in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy we worked for 25 years. And that's when I learned what the barrel of my gun tasted like. Spoiler alert, I did not pull the trigger. A friend of mine came up to me after a keynote one day, and he never heard me say that. He goes, "Hey man, how come you didn't pull the trigger?" Like, "Hey man, could you try to sound slightly less disappointed?" And then the meeting planner said to me, "Look, Frank, we love you. We just can't pay you that kind of money anymore to come in and just be funny. You got to teach us something." And I'd always wanted to make a living and a difference. Could never figure out what I had to teach. And then I realized, given my mental health history, my family, generational depression and suicide runs the family, more nuts in my family than in a squirrel turd. And if I got some training in suicide prevention, I could speak on suicide prevention. It turned out there weren't many male non-clinicians speaking on suicide prevention.
Oh, wow.
Guys don't normally talk about that. Mm-hmm. Things emotional. And so going up on stage and telling my story and being vulnerable and shedding a tear and whatever, apparently is very powerful. And so that's what I've been doing. But I had to rebrand. So in 2014, I did my first TEDx talk. And nobody in my family, my friends, my wife, nobody knew that I was depressed and suicidal until I came out, as it were, on stage at that TEDx in 2014 and proved to all the meeting planners, well, damn, that is serious. He can do serious work. And I'm getting ready to do my 6th TEDx in June, all on mental health, one aspect or another. And I coach TEDx now. I got a couple dozen clients that speakers mostly, some coaches, some authors. They want to do a TEDx to either ramp up a career or start a speaking career or help with book sales or raise money for whatever charitable cause they're attached to.
Gotcha.
So,
oh wow, that's quite the story. We're going to take it back a bit. So when you said that you learned what a gun tastes in your mouth, that doesn't just come up from anywhere. That's not like a whim. And you said that your family had a history of mental illness and suicide. And so if you don't mind I'd like to take it back a bit to, where do those feelings and those thoughts start with you?
Well, as I mentioned, it's called generational depression and suicide. It runs in families. I've got a therapist friend who says she's got a family that goes back 5 generations. My grandmother died by suicide. My mother found her. My great aunt died by suicide. My mother and I found her. I was 4 years old. I screamed for days. It's a gruesome story. I'll spare you. But if you want to know it, it's in my first TEDx talk called A Matter of Laugh, Laugh, or Death. And I was pretty good spirits all the way through high school. I enjoyed high school. A lot of people didn't. I almost stayed an extra year, because back then you could stay an extra year. I was going to take more Spanish. I was going to take typing, which I wish I'd taken. I had a really bad start in algebra, so my trigonometry was just, I was going to take another round of trigonometry to get that cemented in my head. But ended up, my first wife said, "You'll be behind." You get to college, you find out that people there 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. There is no behind in college. But in her mind, you'll be behind the rest of the world, as she had it planned out. In college, I was kind of, I guess I was depressed. Although my girlfriend was going to University of Arizona, I was going to Chapel Hill, and there's about 2,000 miles in between. So I thought I was down in the dumps because I was heart sick. I didn't realize, and I think I was married to my first wife, my girlfriend from college and high school. Big mistake. Should never have done that. We had nothing in common. But you know what they say, opposites attract. She was pregnant, I wasn't. So not true. We never had kids, thank the Lord. She wanted me to be an insurance guy, which I did, work for her dad's company. That was kind of her vision, be young and upwardly mobile. We get married, after a couple of years, have a kid. She would raise the kid. We'd raise the kid till elementary school. She'd go back to work part-time. We'd have another kid, that sort of, white picket fence, dog. And I was going to be a comedian. So she's a wonderful woman. It wasn't really her fault. It was more like a matrimonial bait and switch. Marry an insurance guy, get a comedian. Yeah. So not her. So, and what happened was, I realized I was depressed, and I realized I was suicidal. And it was because I was not going to the Comedy Store to open mic night, which is where I thought I belonged. That's what I thought. I mean, since 4th grade, I knew that's what I should be doing. And I thought, if I don't change something soon, I'm going to kill myself. My second thought was very empowering. Well, I could divorce my wife, quit my job, try comedy. If it works, great. If it doesn't, hell, I can still kill myself. The title of my 4th TEDx is Suicide, the Secret of My Success. And that's the story I kick it off with, because I was suicidal. If I stayed put, I was going to die. So what the hell? I mean, I had nothing to lose by trying comedy. So I did. And fortunately, it worked out. And my first wife decided she really didn't want to be married to a comedian, which I understand. And so she was kind enough to say, we're done, because I couldn't quite, make it stop. And so one of the biggest favors that anybody ever did for me, she goes, "Look, you want to be a comedian since 4th grade. You need to do that. If you think you were going to get back together, you're lying to me and you're lying to you. You need to go do that." Then she said, which is even more powerful for me, "But I've seen your act. You don't have what it takes." Oof. Yeah. So I got the "I'll show you" attitude, which has driven me for decades. Yeah. So she did me 2 favors: cut me loose and then challenged me to do it. So, and I met my current wife after I got separated from my first wife. And I said to her, "Look, I'm going on the road. You stand up comedy for a living. You want to come along for the ride?" She goes, "Yeah." Surprised the hell out of me. So that's when we left the day after Christmas '85, and she and I were on the road. And back in the day, you didn't just work with comics. They put you up in a 3-bedroom condo called the Comedy Condo rather than pay hotel rooms. So I lived with Seinfeld and Dennis Miller and and Jeff Foxworthy and all those guys for a week at a time. My wife and I did, kind of like a frat house for her. Yeah. But everybody was crazy about her, so it worked out just fine. And we enjoyed, it was an interesting lifestyle, but we enjoyed the traveling, and we tried to stay off the interstate, take the back roads, and see, stay at little 1-story motels, privately owned, that kind of thing.
So I gotta stop you for a second, Frank. Is Jerry Seinfeld as neurotic in real life as he appears on TV and in the movies?
No, I don't think so. He's a workhorse.
Yeah.
I worked with him at Charlie Goodnight's in Raleigh, and he did, see, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 7. He did 7 shows and never repeated a joke.
Oh, wow.
7 45-minute sets. That's amazing.
That is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got 2 45s because when you work the cruise ships, you have to have 2 45-minute sets, full sets. But I have a slideshow, 2 versions of funny road signs and things that I collected in my travels. So I can close out with that, and that helps me. It's like a hamburger helper, it extends the what I've got to share. So, yeah. But yeah, he was famous for that work ethic. Mm-hmm. And we had dinner together at Goodnight's. Charlie Goodnight's a nice guy, and I heard him cuss, which he never did. And I was just, it was the F word, not on stage, backstage. Yeah. And I'm like, I couldn't believe, he's so clean. I couldn't believe he said the F word. But yeah, so it was a great, time to be young. And I mean, who doesn't want to get in the car and chuck it all and just drive around the country and do stand up? Some of the clubs really nice, improvs, funny bones, punchlines, but the glue that held the tour together was a horrible one night. There's the beer bars, pool halls, honky tonks, drunk idiots screaming, tell us some jokes we can dance to.
Yeah.
Here comes a slow one you can slow down. So
there you go.
But I wouldn't trade it. It was an interesting lifestyle.
Yeah, it definitely does create some memories,
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's and I kind of miss that, traveling around by car, because everywhere I go nowadays speaking, I pretty much take a plane, unless it's Portland, maybe Seattle. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, I crawl on a plane to go. And live gigs are coming back. I've got 3 live ones in May and 2 virtual, I guess.
That's great.
And the live one in June, and just booked the live one in September. So yeah, I think slowly but surely speaking's coming back.
Well, that's fantastic. So, after you married your now current wife, where did the mental health aspect of your performance start to take a stronger hold?
Well, after I put the gun in my mouth, and then after the meeting planner said, look, we can't pay. I was getting $5,000 for 45 minutes of clean comedy.
And what year was that?
April 2010. So it was 11 years ago this month when I put the gun in my mouth. And then after that, as speaking began to come back, they said, look, we can't pay you $5,000 for 45 minutes of just comedy. You got to do something else. And I'd really always wanted to do something else, make a living and a difference. And Judy Carter is a friend of mine. She wrote the Comedy Bible, and she wrote a book called The Message of You. And the subtitle is fabulous, Turning Your Life into a Money-Making Speaking Career. I thought, I'll buy it. So I bought it, and I went into it thinking I got nothing. And then she walks you through the process of finding your heart story, what you should be sharing, tells you what sort of talks. For example, marketable, bookable topics are health, wealth, relationships. Those 3 are the top. And so about halfway through her book, I thought, I do have something to talk about. I mean, that story, plus some training in suicide prevention, I bet you I could sell that as a keynote. And then that was 2014 when I did my first TEDx. And then in 2018, right before January of 2018, I was working a ship. I was on the elliptical runner in the gym. And I'm thinking about all the people in my community who are, they do really well, successful. And thought to myself, what do they have in common? And it hit me. They do one thing extremely well. And I thought, okay, that's it. I'm in. I'm just going to be a suicide prevention speaker. If somebody wants me to do comedy, I will. I've got a networking speech, motivational speech, but I'm not going to market any of that. I'm just going to market myself as a suicide prevention speaker. And Jane Atkinson, speaker launcher, coach, says famously, pick a lane. Speakers, pick a lane. So I picked suicide prevention as my lane. Of course, when I'm coaching speakers, they're a little nervous about doing that, because if you pick a lane, that means you're not going to be in the other lanes, and they're worried about, it's called opportunity cost. You're giving up the opportunity to make money in those other lanes. But I try to encourage them, go, look, nowadays people don't want a generalist so much as they want a thought leader, an expert. They want you to be the person, the guy or gal.
Yep.
So I did, and all of a sudden, because it is really my purpose, and somebody said to me, "How'd you pick suicide as a topic?" Well, the topic pretty much picked me. That plus picking a lane, and then I picked 4 or 5 occupations that have a high rate of suicide and are trying to do something about it. When I'm talking to my speaker clients, I say, look, here's what an ideal client looks like for me, probably for you. They have an annual meeting, which usually means associations because they got to install officers. They use outside speakers. Many associations do. They have a budget so they can pay your fee. And they have a bleeding need for what it is that you have to say. And I wish I could take credit for all that, but Michael Port, P-O-R-T, wrote a great book called Book Yourself Solid. And in that, he walks you through. That's how I figured out who my ideal clients were. I worked through Michael's formula, and realized the top 10 at-risk occupations for suicide. I picked 4 or 5 of them: dentists, doctors, veterinarians, construction, and project managers.
Wow.
And that's all I market to. So by picking a lane, one thing to speak on, and picking a solid set of people to pitch to, rather than pitching to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you go to suicide prevention speakers, plural, dental, suicide prevention speakers, plural, dental, you'll find 5, 6, or 7 organic listings for me on page 1 Google.
Wow. Now, I have to say, of those occupations you listed, and this is not downplaying dentists at all, but of the 3 medical professions, I could see doctors, I could see vets, because seeing animals die all the time has got to be heart-rendering or heart-wrenching. But dentists, like, what is the reason that a lot of the research states?
Well, it's active suicide is not the big killer for dentists and veterinarians. It's stress, and stress induced or exacerbated mental or physical illness. So heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure, or depression, thoughts, suicide. And what it stems from is nowadays the average dentist comes out of dental school. 4 out of 5 dentists come out of dental school with $350,000 in student loan debt.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to need another $250,000 to either buy into a practice or start a practice. And even if it's wildly successful, you're going to be, what happens is, with that big a nut, you're going in early, you're working through lunch, you're working late, you're not going to the gym, you're not at home with the family where you should be spending time. And so all that financial stress turns into mental stress and physical stress. So that's the big killer. With veterinarians, the only difference really between dentists and vets is compassion fatigue from putting down animals. Not ones that have come to the end of their lives, but it's an otherwise healthy animal where they can't afford to fix whatever the problem is.
Yeah.
And then veterinarians have easy access to barbiturates.
Oh, yeah.
75% of dentist suicides are by barbiturate, whereas in the general population, somewhere under 25% is barbiturates, overdose. Wow. Yeah, so that's why. And physicians, similar issues. 1 physician dies every day in the U.S. Actually, 400 a year.
Wow.
Die in the U.S. Yeah, hardly anybody knows that because hospitals don't really advertise. They don't lead the league in physician suicide. Yeah. So construction is number 1 generally. Mm-hmm. And it's male heavy, and it's rough and tumble males, and 8 out of 10 suicides in the U.S. these days are men. Mm-hmm. So that's why we wrote the books. We were writing a 4-book series on men's mental health. We got 3 out, and probably published a 4th one this year. Kind of a chicken soup for the soul. 12 stories in each book of 12 guys, and what their problem is and how they're coping.
What are the titles of those books, or what's the title of the series?
The title of the series: Guts, Grit, and the Grind. Guts, Grit, and the Grind.
The Grind. Okay.
All on Amazon. The last one went up on Amazon April 8th, and we were a bestseller in 3 categories day 1.
Wow, that's great.
There were no books on men's mental health, and we asked the publisher. We used the publisher at the second one, and they said, "Well, I got to be honest with you, books on men's mental health don't sell." So that's why there were no books. Yeah. But what we found is more women buy it than men. because they got a man in their life, father, son, brother, whatever. They got a problem and they have no idea how to help out.
Mhm.
None.
Yeah, it's much easier to read a book on your own than to go ask someone for help. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, guys just don't. And it's not just mental health. It's guys wait too long to get a colonoscopy. They put off the PSA test. They get a lump in the testicles. They wait too long. I had two friends, two comics. One died of colon cancer. One died of prostate cancer. There's absolutely no reason for you to die of prostate cancer.
Yeah.
Get a digital exam, then a PSA test, and if they catch it early, it's eminently treatable. But if a colonoscopy, same thing. You catch the little polyps, they take them out, go back 5 years. There's really no reason, but men, I haven't seen a doctor in 25 years. Well, just one question for you: who's your next of kin?
Yeah,
because you're gonna die here shortly.
Who's your who's your third corner? Yeah, so
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I know you said, Frank, that you have these upcoming speaking engagements. What else is on the horizon for you?
Well, the speaking engagements, I believe supposedly 20 or 25% of speakers retired or quit during COVID. So, and I think it's going to be some pent up demand. People want to get back together in person and do the vendor showcase and exhibit hall. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a banner year, a couple of years for our speakers. And you know what? I think the silver lining may be on May 4th, I've got a 9 o'clock in the morning keynote that I'll be doing virtually to a group, the South Palm Beach County Bar Association and 3 other bar associations in Florida on suicide prevention. They'll get continuing legal education credit for that.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And I'll be in Salt Lake City though, because that night at 6, I'm speaking to a dental group. So there's no way that I can physically get from South Palm Beach County in Salt Lake City in time. Even gaining 2 hours, I'm not going to get to Salt Lake City in time to do a 6 p.m. dinner. So 2 years ago, if I said, well, to the Florida people, let's do it on Zoom, they'd be like, on what?
Yeah.
But this time I said, look, I can't physically get there. And they said, well, how about virtual? So you know what? It means that we can do, we can essentially be 2 places at once.
Yes. That's such an ups, I guess a silver lining to all of this. Last month, as we're recording this in April, I actually spoke to a group of teenagers in Nepal.
Yeah, I've done South Africa, Mumbai. Yeah. I never would have done any of that.
Exactly. I know.
A friend of mine,
go ahead.
Comic. She actually virtually emceed 2 events. Neither event knew she was doing the other. She got 2 computers. She got a second Zoom account, and she was going back and forth between the desktop and laptop, emceeing these 2, and neither one knew that she was, doing
a twofer.
Yeah.
That's
and
hilarious.
Pre-COVID, that's not going to happen.
No, they would pick up on the fact that you're off the stage.
Yeah, that's right. Where are you going? I got to run.
Yeah.
Even the same hotel. I mean, you couldn't even pull it off in the same hotel because it's sure enough that something would overlap. And
that is fascinating. That we speakers have found a way to make the impossible possible. And so
no longer the slave to airline schedules, to geography. I mean, there may be clients who go, look, we won't. But this whole either virtual or hybrid. I was just in Florida. I was in Orlando live. We did a TEDx style talk, and then I did a panel. And 2 of the panelists, another guy and I, were there in the room, and 2 of the panelists came in by Zoom, and it was great. So,
well, that's fantastic. And so, you said that you have another book coming out, the 4th in your series coming out.
Yep, should be out by the end of the year. I'm voicing them all.
Oh wow, okay.
For Audible. So if you go to my website, thementalhealthcomedian.com, and put an email address in, you can download the first book unabridged. That's about 4 hours and change, and I'm narrating it, and I'll eventually have all 4 on there for free. And of course, they're available on Audible for money. But I figured I'd make them available for free in case somebody needed it, couldn't afford the Audible.
That's good. Yeah, we'll make sure we have that in the show notes below.
Yeah, I got a great audio editor, Fiverr, in Nigeria, and when I heard what he'd done with my voice, I'm like, damn, I'm good. Because they master it for Audible.
Yes.
So it has to have a certain quality before they'll post it on, put it up on Audible. So
yeah, that's excellent. All right. And so, like I said, Frank, we're going to put up your information in the show notes before, but if someone wanted to reach out to you, where would they find you?
The Mental Health Comedian, and you don't have to type it in with the .com. Just type in the words "The Mental Health Comedian." I'll come up. Or your TEDxcoach.com, your TEDxcoach.com. And if any of your listeners have TEDx's on their bucket list, I believe, I've suspected this for a long time, for the last 8 months or so, that they're not getting the number of applications they normally get. Normally, TEDx gets 100-200 applications per event, ideas. Seattle normally gets 500. And I have it on good authority that Seattle got 50 applications this year, 10%. Wow. Yeah, I know that because a friend had a friend, he referred to me. She said, Frank, look, I got this application for Seattle TEDx. I said, well, the deadline was 7 days ago. She goes, yeah, I know somebody on the committee, and they knew I had a speech. So they reached out to me and asked if I would fill it out. And I go, why'd they reach out? Well, normally they get 500 apps. They got 50. So they're a little thin. So if you are thinking about, if that's on your bucket list, now I think is the best time in history, because there just aren't that many, apparently not that many going in.
Wow. I actually might need to check that out, because it's never been on my bucket list, but for speaking opportunity, that's fantastic endeavor to go after. So I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, what it is, I coach people to do that. I got a couple dozen students. Where I found they fell down on the job is I have 1 hour a week Zoom with them. And normally we fill out one application a week. But these are busy professionals. They would always set up an appointment, then they, would reschedule. And I realized what's happening is they don't want to spend the hour filling out the app. So I met a woman who used to work for one of the big TEDx companies, coaching companies, and that was her job, filling out the application. So I said to one of my clients one day, hey, listen, I've got a friend named Jen. She doesn't have a creative bone in her body. So you and I have to do all the creative on the title, subtitle, whatever. But she charges $600 to fill out 20 applications, so $30 a pop. And before I could finish, I'm in. Because most of these people make more than $30 an hour. So why not redo the creative, the title and stuff, because that's really the key, I think, to getting an audition is it's got to be really interesting. But Jen just fills in the boxes and sends them off in bulk. And 2-3 months is her average for somebody to nail down a TEDx talk. You have to do the work to fill in her form with all the answers to the most frequently asked questions. And occasionally she'll call and go, look, I need a 90-second Zoom video overview to put with this application. Normally she has you do a 1, 2, and 3 minute, but every now and then you get the curveball, 90 seconds. Okay, fine. So you record the 90 and send it to her. But that's, and the second thing is they want to be speakers, or they are speakers, they're having trouble getting gigs, and they hate emailing and phone calling and researching and chasing meeting planners. So a friend of mine used to work at a speakers bureau as a sales executive, and COVID killed the bureau. So she set up a speaker virtual assistant business, and she will research your ideal clients, send them an email, follow it up with a phone call, and try to book it for you. And she charges $20 an hour for the VA work, which is about a third of what most VAs charge, even overseas. Mm-hmm. But she makes 20% if she books you. So she's got skin in the game to get you booked.
All right.
So again, my clients are like, what? She'll email and phone call and try to book me? So those were the two big stumbling blocks for my speakers. Mm-hmm. And I just happened to stumble on Jen, who fills out the apps, and Nona, who does the the research and so forth. So yeah, it's because people always ask me about what's the toughest thing about speaking business? Getting the freaking gig.
Yeah.
Speaking's easy.
Oh yeah.
by the time you know how it is, by the time you get on stage, your job is long done. This is just the fun part.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, it's cake then. Everything
yeah.
else you gotta put in the work for. And really quick, speaking of work, I have to say that we didn't touch even on your physical scars.
Yeah.
And because I said, do you have any physical scars? And holy cow, Frank, you are like a wet paper bag. You are ripped, man.
Oh, thank you. And there's the titanium twist ties down the for my 2 aortic valve replacements.
Wow. Yeah. So that was quite remarkable. It's like, oh yes, you definitely qualify for this show. So
well, and I did it it was on my bucket list to do a bodybuilding contest. And I've always been, I guess, they say small boned is not a thing, but I've got small bones and fine boned, my mother would say. And so I knew I would never be able to, when I was 20 or 30, couldn't. But at 60, it's a master's category.
Yeah.
And I figured most guys would have given up by then, which most have. And B, it's not about size, it's vascularity, muscularity, and proportion. So it's more body sculpting rather than building.
Yeah.
And so I did my first contest in 2018 October. Terrifying. And because I opened for Randy Travis 2 nights, 5,000 people per night at an amphitheater. Didn't even break a sweat. But to stand on stage in your underwear, essentially, in front of 300 people, it's nightmarish.
I'm sure you've never done a 5-minute comedy stint in a Speedo.
No. And I'm up there and you have to do, because you get 60 seconds of music and you have to do like 5-6 poses in 60 minutes. It's like, I've got a little video. My hair, the woman who cuts my hair came in, she videoed on her phone, bless her heart. And so, and I'm a comic, so everybody else is very serious,
Yeah.
And they have these rock anthems, Start Me Up. And I used Dion and the Belmonts. I'm the kind of guy who likes to run around.
Oh, nice.
Never in my place. Wrong time. And the first 8 beats, there's no vocals. So I came out swinging my hips and snapping my fingers in the first 8 beats. And the audience went nuts because it was different than everybody else.
Yeah.
Serious. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to do another one in July. It's all natural, true natural, which means they polygraph you beforehand and urine test you after to make sure you're not juicing on something.
Yep. Okay.
My antidepressant apparently is on the ban list, but I said to my posing coach, I go, you really want me off my antidepressant 90 days before this contest? Yeah, I'll win because I'll kill everybody else.
Yeah.
He goes, no. If your doctor said you had to have it, then that's fine.
Well, good luck on that. But I knew I was missing something when talking with you. I was like, oh yeah, I gotta hit the bodybuilding. So
yeah, and the scars, the titanium twist ties, they use those to put your chest back together after they crack it twice. And because when I'm down to about 8% body fat, so you can, if I'm at 18% body fat, you can't see the twist ties.
Oh yeah.
But at 8%, you can see, you can count them as you're going down. It's but scars are every scar has a story.
Yeah.
I thought about doing a book called I think it's something like you have, Scars of the Stars, where it would be somewhere like Schwarzenegger's had 2 aortic valve replacements, but they did the keyhole thing, so it'd be a very small scar.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be fun to have actually to show the scar and then say, now who is the star? And
there
back
you go.
of the book, they show you, the head and this, because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there with motorcycle, whatever accidents, childhood things,
necrotizing fasciitis.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Deadpool?
Oh, hello.
Yeah, I'm a discount Deadpool, or maybe a zombie extra from The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
so.
I love that show, by the way.
I've never seen it.
Filmed. One of the 2 seasons were filmed in a little town down in Georgia, Sonoy. That they beat the town up. They made it look like it was all beat up. Is the one where they built a fort around a like a main street, and it's Main Street in Sonoy. And my cruise agent's coffee shop is one of the places where the crew and they would have coffee. They would also film some episodes there. But again, they beat up the place to make it look like it was post-apocalyptic.
Yeah. That's man, yeah. Scar. I say scars or tattoos for tough people.
Yeah, I've thought about tattoos. I don't have any. I've off and on thought, but my cousin Georgia has a tattoo. She had got a rose on her breast, and she said now that she's in her 60s, it's a long stem rose.
Oh man. Well, Frank, it's been an honor and a privilege to talk with you, sir. If you were to impart one piece of information to an audience member who really needed to hear it, what would you say?
That if you're suicidal, call the Lifeline, the hotline. If you're mentally ill and having a bad day, call a crazy person. And my phone number is 858-405-5653, 858-405-5653. And I always put it up on the screen. I always say that exact thing. Look, if you're suicidal, for goodness sakes, or text the text line if you're young. Text the word help to 741-741. But if you're just having a bad day and you're mentally ill, call a crazy person. I put my phone number up, and people, about every 2 weeks, they're going to call either about themselves or a loved one looking for resources or, something like that. So it's, and oftentimes the guy, because they don't, again, they don't reach out. They're a little shy about reaching out.
Yeah.
And they might not ask a question at the Q&A. They'd be embarrassed, so they can call me afterwards if they want to.
Well, that's cool. That's very generous of you to offer that. And so I will definitely put those numbers in the show notes. And then one more thing, my audience always loves to learn this answer. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, Dino, the one of the Flintstones. I'm showing my age. That would be.
I had another guest who said Dino as well. So you're in good company.
Well, and I did a commercial one time for one summer I worked at Cumulus radio station group and sold ads, wrote copy, and voiced commercials. And one of the veterinarians handled exotics. And so we wrote a commercial about a guy and a girl are on a date. They come home and the girl's got a crate in the house, and in the crate is a velociraptor.
Oh, wow.
And you can hear, the thing about radio is, and it's theater of mind, you can hear that you're making the noise and rattling the cage. And why is he looking at me like that? I think he likes you.
That's funny.
And she's at the end of the commercial, she's opening the cage. Oh my God.
Well, maybe you'll have to resurrect that and put it on the internet sometime.
Yeah, I had a ball doing that. Doing again voiceovers and writing commercials, and and it was a corporate gig, so it was soul sucking. But the fun part was writing the ads and voicing the ads with the guy who was the production guy. So we made some actually memorable advertisements.
That's fun.
That's another story.
Well, cool. Well, speaking of memorable, this has been memorable for me. Frank, thank you so much for your time and your stories and sharing your message with the audience. Please have a great day, sir.
Yes, and if you want somebody to book you to speak, let me know, and I'll turn you on to Nona, the speaker VA. If you're shy about calling and emailing and whatever.
Sounds good.
I pay her. Not my favorite thing. So.
Yep. Gotcha.
All right, man.
Well, thank you, sir, and then everyone else. Thanks for joining us today. Again, if you want to reach out to Frank, look in the show notes below. If you want to reach out to me to see what I have to offer in my speaking endeavors, please go to linktr.ee/Chris DT Gordon. Please like, share, subscribe, rate, give me all the feedback you can on this. And, tell me your favorite joke from Frank. Why not? All right, folks, please have a great day. And remember to pass on perfection and go for greatness.